We're ready to start our third sketch. The goal of this third step is to define the strokes and details of our character. Ideally, we should do so as cleanly as possible and make all decisions at this time. If you want to change something, there is still time, so don't be afraid to try new things, since it will be easier to change or try things now than in the next phase, the inking phase. In practice, the truth is that, at least for me, this is practically impossible. Although I try to be as clear and precise as possible, I always end up making some changes in the inking phase. What I mean is that, while it is true that we should try to be clear and precise in this phase, you shouldn't obsess over it too much. Enjoy the process, and don't worry if you leave some loose ends. It's not the end of the world. Technically, the process for making this third sketch is no mystery, and is based on the use of the same techniques and tools that we have seen previously. However, I think it's a good time to introduce two new tools that can help us be more precise and draw more comfortably. They are two tools that I use constantly from the moment I start drawing, even on the first sketch. I have tried not to use them until now to avoid introducing too much information at once, but maybe you've seen me use them instinctively at some point. These are the hand tool and the rotate tool. You can find both tools here above in the tools panel below the zoom tool. These are navigation tools, that is, they do not alter our drawing or affect the workspace. They are tools that allow us to comfortably move through the workspace and manipulate the camera. The hand tool allows us, by clicking and dragging the mouse, to move freely around the canvas in any direction. It's an extremely useful tool that you'll turn to very frequently, so as always, I recommend linking it to some shortcut. In my case, I've linked this tool to the space bar. The second tool is the rotate tool. With this tool, if we left click and drag the mouse around the canvas, we can rotate it without altering the orientation of the drawing. As we can check in the navigator, the drawing remains intact, while our view of the canvas rotates from one side to the other. You can also use this small slider here below to get the same results, but again, since it is a navigation tool that we will use all the time, I recommend linking it to a shortcut. In my case, I have used the R key. I use the rotate tool all the time to adjust the canvas to the angle of my arm in a way that makes it more comfortable and easier for me to make precise strokes. I am right-handed, so for me, it's easier to make arc strokes from the bottom left to the top right. I know it can be a bit dizzying to see the canvas rotate all the time, so for the purposes of this tutorial, I will try not to use it too often. But when putting it into practice, keep in mind that, in reality, I use it much more than you'll see in this video. Also, you can keep the Shift key pressed while doing this, so you lock the rotation to 45 degrees angles. With these two new tools, we're ready to begin our third sketch. The first thing, as always, is to create a new layer and lower the opacity of the reference layer. In this case, I'm also going to change its color by pressing Ctrl+B to make it easier to differentiate from my new drawing layer. And now, with the same pen tool that we have been using so far, I will start to define the strokes of our character. Okay, so, these are just some random strokes to test the pen tool. Everything seems correct, so I think we are ready to start. So I select my pen tool, I zoom in, and I rotate the canvas to accommodate it to my angle of drawing. Then, as I told you before, I don't know why, but I always start with the left eye. Here it is. Okay, now looks better. I zoom out to get a better view of the character, and I rotate to start drawing the eyebrow. Something like that, thick eyebrow. Okay, looks good to me. Then I continue adding some lines for the nose. What I'm doing here is trying to not forget the structure that we have under this layer. And I keep adding a few random lines, these kind of texture lines. They're not very important right now, but I think they help me to get a better feel of how the character will end up looking. So I may end up not using these lines, but for now, I think they are useful. When I zoom out, I realized that the pupil was not in the right position, so then I deleted it, and then I drew it again, but I was also not happy with the result. So I tried again, and now it seems okay to me. I make this mistake quite often. Sometimes the pupils of my characters don't look straight, but as you can see, it's not a big problem. You can fix it very quickly. Here I'm drawing the nose. As you can see, it's not a very realistic nose, but that's not what I'm looking for. So it's not a problem for me. I think it matches my style quite well. And now what I will do is to apply the same trick that we saw before. I will use the select tool, the lasso tool, and I will select this eye, and then Ctrl C to copy, Ctrl V to paste, F to flip, then I move it to the right, and I merge the two layers. So I can continue now, working on this side of the head. And as you can see, I'm kind of improvising a little bit the volume of the head, the volume of the hair. Again, nothing too realistic, not very complicated. I like focusing on shapes, on volumes, almost as if it was some kind of 3D character. And honestly, sometimes I think of drawing as sculpting. I like the idea of adding and removing blocks, forms, shapes. Now I'm going for the mustache. As you can see, I didn't like it. It was too thin, so I did a few more lines to make it more exaggerated. I think now it's better. Yeah, I'm happier with this new version. So then I go back to that side of the face and I add some structural lines. And again, this is not very important right now, but it really helps me to get a better feel of the overall structure of the head. So it's easier for me to see if the process is progressing the way I wanted. I added a few more wrinkles, a few more expression lines, because I want this character to look old, to look tired. That man was a very, very gentle man, very nice man, but you could see that he's seen a lot. He's been working for a long time in the sea, so I want that to show in this character. At this point, I decided that it looks quite well, and I will use the same trick that I used before to copy this side of the face. Again, selection tool, Ctrl C, copy, Ctrl V, paste, then I flip it, and then I move it to the other side. This area here, the nose area, overlaps a little bit with the layer below, but it's very easy to correct by just using the eraser tool. And as you can see, it doesn't affect the other layer because I'm only working in the new layer that I just copied. Once finished, I merge the two layers and I continue working on the hair. As you can see, I use the flip tool to check that everything looks okay. So far so good, I think, so no adjustments needed. But now I realized that I added too much volume on this side of the head, so I removed a little bit of volume, and I think that now it looks better. So then I start working on the head. I want to keep it rough because it was a very old head. I don't want it to look nice. So I will add like some holes here, some weathering. And to achieve that effect, I add here and there some random lines like this. I think they will add some texture to the head, making it look older and more believable. Then I draw some lines here for the neck, and I go back to the mustache. And well, at this point, maybe you realize that my approach to drawing and inking is quite chaotic somehow. What I mean is that, as you can see, I jump from one part of the character to the other as I spot things. I don't know if this is academically correct, but it's my way of doing it, and I guess the main reason why I work like this, it's because it's more fun. I think I just keep working on things as I see them, and then I go back, I spot some mistakes, and then I go there. I don't know, I find it more fun, more organic, more active somehow. But, well, anyway, as you can see now, I'm adding some random lines just to add more interest to the image, some texture. And I think this step is really important, these lines, because they help to break the symmetry. Remember that we copied half of the character before. I think that's a very useful trick and can save a lot of time, but if you are not careful, your character may end up looking too symmetrical, too digital, too artificial. So I think it's always a good idea, if you do that, to revisit the areas that you copied and introduce some variations. Like in this case, I introduced some lines, some textures that can help to break the symmetry a little bit. What I did now here, I just hit the layer of reference because I don't need it anymore. I want to check how this new sketch looks. And then I'm just adding a few more details here, like in the ears, the hair, you saw the neck. Now I'm just checking. Looks good to me. Zoom out to get a better view. Let's add some more texture lines, but maybe that's too much. Something more random like that. A thinner line up there. Yeah, I think this is much better. And what else could we do here? I think it looks quite good. So I will just move it up a little bit to create more space. I will close the shape down there. Not really important, but just to make it look nicer. And I think that's all. I think we have a very nice third sketch, but I must confess something. I don't know if it was the pressure of being recorded or what was it, but usually my third sketches don't look that clean. This one was an exception. So if yours doesn't look that clean, it's okay. Don't worry too much about it because we will clean all these mistakes or make it look cleaner in the next phase, the inking phase. Okay. Also, I don't know if your sketch is perfect, is very, very clean. Maybe you feel like you can skip the inking phase because your sketch is already perfect. That could be the case, but anyway, I recommend you come with me to the next lesson because in that lesson we will learn some tricks that are really, really useful. On the screen, you can see two characters in the third sketch phase. As you can see, they are quite defined, although the lines are messy and have a poor finish. None of that matters right now. What matters is that our characters are perfectly recognizable and that our lines are fairly precise and easy to read. This will make our work much easier during the inking phase. Stylistically, notice how I've applied something I mentioned earlier, exaggeration. Of course, you don't have to do this if you don't like it, but as I mentioned before, I think it's a tremendously effective technique for creating charismatic characters to exaggerate or caricature some of their features. Look at the large jaw of the character on the left, their angular head, or their eccentric ponytail. This eccentricity contrasts with the curved and smooth lines of the character on the right, who has a sad and mysterious look, but with exaggeratedly voluminous hair and a patch over one eye that adds to the mystery. Do you like them? Use the techniques and tools you've learned in this video and the previous ones to draw your third sketch. Remember that now you should try to be precise and clear with your strokes, though don't obsess over neatness or achieving a perfect finish. The key word now is communication. Your third sketch must clearly convey your character's identity volumes, proportions, and distinctive features. It should be easy to read at a glance. So once again, try to be precise and clean, but at the same time, make sure not to spend too much time on the finish, since remember this layer will be completely invisible at the end of the process. If you want, you can look at some examples of my own work to see the level of detail I consider appropriate for this third sketching phase.